You are Locked On UCF, your daily podcast on the UCF Knights, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome on in to Locked On UCF, your daily UCF podcast. I'm your host, Mike G. Thank you so much for making us your first listen of every single day. Turn us on, turn us up. We'll turn it out. I'm here with my good friend, James Duncan, UCF sports commentator, to talk a little UCF football. We didn't get to do a recap show, so on today's show, we're going to talk about that loss to BYU. Some positive things happened. They did get a lead in the game. I think much to the surprise to a lot of people. But then what has happened against better competition happens. The Knights collapse. We'll talk about that in the second segment. Then to end the show, we'll talk about what's next for Scott Frost and his UCF Knights. Today's show is brought to you by our friends at Game Time, our title sponsor. Download the Game Time app today, guys. Use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Game Time. Thank you for sponsoring this segment. James, another rough night for the UCF. They surprised, much to everybody's surprise, the first two drives went about as well as they could have gone. UCF jumps out to a big 14-0 lead. It felt big on the road. 14-0 on the road felt massive. So look, and I think that this is what most people expected from UCF, just more consistently, man. You know, if your offense doesn't die for half a game after this, maybe you're still hanging around in the fourth quarter and you have a chance to win. UCF maybe just a little outclassed in this one. Talk to me, man, about that 14-0 lead. Were you filled with hope? I remember calling you I was like, what's going on here, man, with our Knights? And then, there wasn't a lot after, but I want to revel in the 14-0 for a second here about and what it took to jump out to a lead like that.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. I feel like in the most of the games we saw this year, it really took them a lot to get going, especially you even saw against Oklahoma State, who had won 0 Power 5 games or even 0 D1 games on the year. When you played them, you didn't score a single point in the first half. All of your points came in the second half, 17 unanswered. You really kind of felt like UCF was more of a second half team, maybe barring some fourth quarter struggles earlier in the year. But you really felt like UCF kind of got out and BYU was still at the starting line, wondering what the heck happened. You got out, you made a big, drive and you scored unexpectedly. Nice touchdown to Dylan Wade. That Dylan Wade connection has just been phenomenal. He has been such a great player for you. You really hope you can retain him this year. And then, the walk-on Ajmen Adi, he was a big, baller in spring camp, but you kind of saw the running back room with Myles and Jaden, the big transfer Jaden, and then obviously you have Tayven Swint, and you had Stacey Gage. So he was the running back 5 coming into the year, and then runs in a touchdown for you this year off a reception, and then throws one for you to Tayven Jackson. 2 touchdown day for a walk-on running back who started the year as a running back 5. You felt really good to start this football game. You felt like kind of you were firing on all cylinders. You kind of noticed that BYU's offense was sputtering a little bit without the effort from Chase Roberts, who was sidelined this game. You felt like at the beginning of this game, first quarter, 14-0, that things were going well for you. Tayven had time in the pocket, which is not something you saw a lot this year. And when he got out of the pocket, he made smart decisions, which is something that you didn't see a lot this year. 14-0 looked like a really good UCF football team. Mm-hmm. Probably the best that they played, or at least the most coordinated that they had played all year. And then you give up a really weird play to the BYU Cougars, kind of giving them just like a little inspiration to get back. I think that when we were doing the pregame, Mike, and you know, I'm sure I'll get called out on this. I was like, yeah, toss the kitchen sink at him. I want somebody that's not a quarterback throwing the football. I ate those words. Yeah. I ate those words because I also didn't expect, and every, you know, ESPN group or whatever group was covering this game kept being like, UCF, they don't even know what to do. They've never been in front before. And I was like, all right, guys, you don't have to say it like that. But yeah, I mean, you think 14-0, you've got the ball again. I don't know. Give me a run. Give me a regular pass. Don't give me a jet sweep, you know, reverse, and you get the wide receiver.
It was such a bad throw too, man. Yeah.
It's Mike.
I tweeted it at the time. I was like, your offense is playing great. Why do that?
Exactly.
Like, you know, why pull out the trick play there? And when I tell you, he was the reason he's not a quarterback, right? He tried to make a throw. And when you run a trick play like that, it's because the guy that you're potentially throwing the ball to is supposed to be wide open because you tricked him. If he's not wide open, tuck it and run or throw it away.
Yeah.
That's it. That's something you have to coach on those plays. You're not quarterback. Don't go do the stupid thing that turns the ball over. And that's what happened there. And look, I'm not saying that UCF would have won the game if he didn't throw that, but you need all the momentum you can get. And you just gave them a ton back on that play. In the first quarter, in that 14-0 run, you outgained BYU 142 yards to 46 yards. You had 110 passing yards to their 42 yards. I think that they had one sack. So they got to Bachmeier. He's not been sacked a ton this year. UCF got to him. And you essentially ran 18 plays to their 9. You dominated time of possession by 4 minutes. Everything went your way. And then the second quarter happens. And I got to tell you, this was so frustrating. This was really frustrating. The second quarter happens, and you lose that quarter essentially 17-0. They gain 158 yards to your 16 yards. And then the time of possession flips 10 minutes to 4 minutes. So your offense goes away for it. This has been UCF's thing, man. In these games against average to better opponents, your offense disappears for a quarter at a time. It can't disappear. If you score anything in that quarter, maybe you may hold the ball long enough to take points off the board from them and get to the half. So maybe they score 10 points instead of 17, and you get some points, and you might still have the lead. We got to move on, but final thoughts, man. But they have the talent to do it. I thought that was more procedural, and I really thought that interception killed the momentum UCF had going.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, that was kind of the start of the collapse, if you will. And I really think that the defense gave you as much as they could with how much they were on the field. You give yourself so much momentum starting the game out 14-0, and then you make a silly play like that. And I just want to give a little bit more props to UCF's defense. Bear Bachmeier had been sacked 8 times on the year up until this game, Mike. One of the lowest sacked QBs in the country. UCF managed to get half of their yearly sacks on Bear Bachmeier in one game.
Sacks. Yeah.
In one game. Kelly Lawson with 2 sacks. I think Malachi got one and Lou got one. Guys that you've been calling all year came out, they balled out for you. You unfortunately had an early injury that took Jaden Bellamy out of the game for a little while, who's probably your top corner. And he came back into the game, but he was limping around. He had a cramp or a lower leg injury. And so, but you had your guys ball out, and you were thinking this team that we saw in the first quarter, if this team plays for the rest of the game, you win this football game and it might not be close in the favor of UCF.
Yeah.
It has been the UCF trend of figuring out ways to fall apart in whether it's the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, or fourth quarter. They need to find consistency. And with that, finding consistency will avoid collapse, but we'll hear that when we get back from the break.
Yeah. Look, it was a collapse in the second half, unfortunately. So we talked about the 14-0. That was the good. They only scored 7 more points after that. So I called this game 41-21. I hated to be right. The score was exactly 41-21. So let's pay some bills. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what went wrong right after the break.
College football is back, and I couldn't be more excited. The tailgates, the rivalries, fans in the stands. But let's be real. Actually getting tickets to the game can feel like more of a battle than the game itself. Endless queues, hidden fees, prices jumping at checkout. That's why we use Game Time here at Locked On UCF, the app that gives the advantage back to the fans. It's the easiest way to score last-minute tickets at the best prices with no surprise fees. What you see is what you pay. I pulled up the Game Time app, and what did I see? The best college football games at the best prices. I'm talking prices as low as $25. They even have a great new feature called Zone Deals. You pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save crazy big on the prices. So take the guesswork out of buying college football tickets today with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today.
UCF did not do well after the first quarter. I think we stated that very clearly. It was a rough watch. So when you're talking about that, essentially what went wrong for them, it was, hey, look, man, after the first quarter, we didn't do much. We just didn't do much. And so I want to talk about that. We talked about the second quarter again. You lost on the scoreboard 17-0 there. You didn't move the ball 16 yards of total offense in the second quarter. I mean, yikes, right? You did register 2 sacks, so that was a positive. I thought the defense played the entire game. Penalties, man, dumb penalties continue to plague this team. Scott Frost was asked about this after a game by, I forget which reporter it was. There's a lot of great reporters on the UCF beat, but they asked the question if it was a lack of discipline or like what was going on with the penalties, and he said he didn't feel like it was a discipline issue. I don't know if I'm buying that. I think that you have a discipline issue, and when you play a team that's much better than you, like BYU, in their house, you have to be disciplined. And they have to get that fixed this offseason. It absolutely helped contribute to the collapse. Now, obviously, again, you're penalized in through the third quarter. It was just, I don't know, man. I just feel like you can't shoot yourself in the foot because they're locked and loaded, man, on you already. And you're in their home and they're eyeing a college football playoff berth. And I want to say all but clinched it. Maybe on Saturday, winning against UCF, you had a chance to play spoiler. Now they managed 7 points in the third quarter. However, still only like I want to say it was only like 69 yards of offense in the third quarter still. So you didn't really do much offensively, man. It's about the droughts. How did you avoid these droughts moving forward? What do they have to fix in the offseason to keep the pedal to the metal, man, second through, to at least midway in the third quarter so that you have a chance to muster something in the fourth quarter?
Yeah, this offseason is just going to need to be completely focused on consistency and discipline. I thought all of the penalties were really interesting. UCF was one of the most penalized teams in the country And most of them were pre-snap. Not even, game active penalties, not we had holding calls this year. The majority of your calls weren't, in play penalties. They were a lot of pre-snap penalties. And when you commit pre-snap penalties, you are setting yourself up for failure. You are not giving your own team the opportunity to move forward. So, the more that you learn how to reduce those pre-snap penalties, think about all the games this year, Mike, that we covered. And at the end of the game, you could point to a pre-snap penalty that stalled a drive or that held you back from getting a potential game-winning first down or a game-winning touchdown. It is those things that you look at in a game and you go, we got 2 penalties in the first quarter. Not great, but, not going to kill you. But by the end of the game, if you have 8 to 10 penalties, that's a lot of penalties. You're shooting yourself in the foot, and you're expecting your offense to just go out there and be like, okay, well, we're coming from, 1st and 15 now, or 1st and 20. Let's just figure it out. It's double the distance. How are you going to expect your team to do that? I want to point to one game in particular at the end of the game with Davi in the space game. His first play out there, delay a game. And then you had a false start later in that drive. And you've got a freshman quarterback that is trying to get the reins of an offense on one of the most celebrated days during the year of the UCF space game. And you're getting delay of games, false starts. You're having all of these different issues and expecting to find success. It is so difficult to find success if you can't get past starting to play.
Yeah. I mean, look, the fourth quarter saw it not really pick up. Again, you've got, for the quarter, you didn't score any points, and you've got 69 yards of offense again. You passed for 66 yards. I mean, it is very frustrating to hire an offensive coach and have offense be the thing that you're bad at. Now, before we started recording, we talked a little bit about where the improvements were focused on this roster. Feels like, without saying too much, it feels like a lot of the talent via the portal went to the defense, and the defense looked a lot better. I understand having a process that you trust to develop kids, but you still need dogs, man. You still need a base of talent that meets a certain threshold, and then you start from there. But it is very unrealistic to think that you could do what UCF needed to do, maybe with some of the personnel they had in certain position groups. I hope they invest heavily in offensive line this offseason.
Yeah.
Give a QB time, and, it gives you some flexibility with who you can put back there rather than feeling handcuffed by having to play a guy because your line can't protect in pass pro. That's frustrating. It is very frustrating. So, to me, you just didn't have enough dogs. And, while it looked good early, you got to play 60 minutes of football, not 15. And it felt like UCF played 15 minutes of football in this game, and they got beat, in the other 45.
Yeah, absolutely. It's brutal. And it sucks because so many of those things, so many of those little moments where you had a pre-snap penalty or you got penalized, or you made a silly play and threw an interception or a fumble, or, capitalizing is such a big thing in football. And if you can't capitalize on the opportunities that you're given, then your team will struggle. And I just wanted to make sure I got this, stat right while the topic is on UCF collapsing, just an overall collapse this year. UCF was flagged 89 times this year. 65 of those penalties were against the offense, and 40 of those 65 were pre-snap penalties, including 27 false starts. That one there from Matt Marshall, who covers UCF. Thank you for those stats. That's horrible. Yeah. That is an average of 5.4 offensive line penalties a game. You just cannot have that. You cannot have that. It's a massive issue if you can't get past your offensive line. So with that being said, we can talk about what's next.
Yeah, what's next? What's next for the UCF Knights? It's the offseason. Unfortunately, I don't think they're likely to be one of the teams selected for one of those 5-win bowl games. I've seen teams turn down this invite sometimes when they get it. I have no insight into whether UCF would take one or turn it down, but certainly it's something to watch here should they get the offer. So let's get to the break, and when we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about what's next for UCF football this offseason.
The holidays always feel a little easier when you already know the perfect gift. And Omaha Steaks makes it almost too simple. Whether you're treating yourself this season or sending something memorable to family and friends, Omaha Steaks delivers handcrafted perfection right to their door. And this week is the best time to jump in because their cyber deals are here. And the deals are huge. The quality is exactly what you hope for. Incredibly tender steaks, rich flavor, and meals that make hosting or weeknight cooking easier. Save big on unforgettable gifts with Omaha Steaks. Visit omahasteaks.com for 50% off site-wide and an extra 20% off select flavors during their cyber sale. And for an additional $35 off, use promo code COLLEGE at checkout. That's omahasteaks.com, promo code COLLEGE. Terms apply. See site for details.
What's next for the UCF Knights? They've got to refocus this offseason. We kind of teased it earlier. You put a lot of focus on the defense, and now it's time to turn your attention to the offense. I don't want to put you in a position here, but I don't know what you want to speak to here about how they ended up with the personnel that they ended up with offense, but I certainly want to give you the floor to talk about offensive personnel and how they can improve that this season.
Yeah, well, I think there's a lot of improvement to be done. And, before we go over what happened this past offseason and how it could potentially affect this offseason, I want to talk about everybody that will be leaving this team, barring any waivers being accepted or medical redshirts being taken. Starting with Kelly Lawson, who had 2 sacks against this BYU team, was definitely coming in to be a big leader. I think he quickly, got, kind of replaced or sat, with a 1A, 1B situation with another guy on this list, Cole Kozlowski, who had a big year from Colgate. He was definitely a massive pickup. Phil Dunham, who's had an insane year, is probably going to be on his last year of eligibility. This was his last year of eligibility. Marcus Burke, who came in and had a bunch of big catches for you. Jaden Nixon, Nigelique Kelly, who had an amazing year. Chris Dahmerkant, who showed some flashes this year. Cam Fancher, obviously with the early injury, he will probably take a medical go and go somewhere else. Noe Ruelas, who gave you some, good vibes on the kicking side of things. Made a lot of big kicks this year. Brock Hansel, who was a walk-on quarterback who got a little bit of time this year. Myles, who is just a UCF guy. Really great to have him on this football team, but will be leaving. Nick Antoine, who didn't really come in this year. Tyler Wren, who didn't come in this year. Terrell Jackson, who didn't come in this year. Dorsenville, who was hurt a majority of the year. Pat Barnett, who didn't come in this year. Malachi Lawrence, another big name that is most likely out of eligibility, like I said, barring any sort of waiver being claimed. Cam Kenny, who was a big part of your offensive line this year. Jabari Brooks, a big part of your offensive line this year. Guard Memlar, a big part of your offensive line this year. Paul Rubelt, a big part of your offensive line this year. Keegan Smith, a big part of your offensive line this year. Guys, Those are all the people that will most likely be leaving your school. There's about a 95% chance, almost 99% chance that those guys will be heading out. So with all of that being said, you have to go get some guys. And I'd be interested to see, guys, comment down below. Would you rather spend a lot of money on a quarterback and get a really good QB and get a decent offensive line? Or would you rather get a baller offensive line and have a decent QB? Let me know in the comments, guys. I want to know what your thoughts are. If you've made it this far in the video, tell me.
Yeah, I'm going to answer the question for me. I would rather have a really, really good offensive line and a decent QB because we hired a QB guy.
Yeah.
You hired a QB guy. So give me a decent QB that meets that threshold for talent, and they can improve and build on him until he's better than decent or even great. I think, again, one of my favorite stories in all of college football is Joe Burrow.
Yeah.
He was the third quarterback in Ohio State's room. And now, mind you, the guys that he was in there with, really good. I would not take anything away from those guys. But they weren't better than him. They clearly weren't better than him. And the results speak for themselves, man. One undefeated season and a national title and a Heisman and a top draft pick and a Super Bowl appearance later, he was the best one. He gets to LSU, James, and they just clear space for him to be good. And he wins the job. He had a decent season that year that that UCF game, I'm telling you, was the year that really launched. That was the game that
he
launched.
woke up after that hit.
Yeah, the hit, boy, turned on Joe Burrow, all Madden mode, and he just went nuts. And I'm telling you, if you get in a good system, their passing game coordinator or whatever, Joe Brady that year, genius. That guy was a genius for that year. And I think that if we hire an offensive guy, we should see development on the offensive side, and not necessarily like a plug and play kind of quarterback thing, but my best college football example of this is Lane Kiffin. Trinidad Chambliss is probably one of the best stories in all of college football this year. I don't know if you saw the videos of Lane getting booed, leaving. The level of upset that their fans are equal. It's because of the job that he did there. And their offenses, no matter how, Jackson Dart was one of the best. He was the best quarterback in the SEC last year.
Yeah.
He leaves, and you just plug and play, and you're somehow having a better season. I think Dart is a better quarterback than Chambliss, by the way. And they're both really good.
Yeah.
But because you know what you're doing with quarterbacks, you're having a better season with a guy who has less talent, and your offense works and has never not worked at anywhere that Lane Kiffin has coached. In my mind, give me the offensive line if Scott Frost is truly still a premier mind in college football. I'm going to give you year one. But year two, we better see this offense take a step forward. And I want to see you spend the money. Look, man, coaches don't always get this right, which is why in the NFL, a lot of coaches don't get to control personnel decisions. The GM goes out and decides who you're getting in the draft and who you take in free agency. It's your job to take those players. You get input, but it's your job mostly to take those players and put something on the field that can win games. I want to see that Scott Frost, in college, the college coach has to be GM and coach to some extent. So I want to see that he can walk and chew gum at the same time. And I want to see that he is still a premier mind in college football, but not a whole lot of systems work unless you have good offensive line play. That's why I take the offensive line. That's just me.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. And I think, you've seen, unfortunately, a lot of quarterbacks these past couple of years as a UCF fan. I don't think it would surprise a lot of UCF fans if, you had next year and, all these quarterbacks come in. But I think most UCF fans want to see a guy that they recruited in high school go on and play for them. And I think that you'd have the opportunity with Rocco and with Dante. You have ballers coming in. And you've got Davi Belfort still waiting in the wings there. You got ballers on this team, but they need development, desperately need development. And most quarterbacks coming into college desperately need development. There are very few quarterbacks that you just have from high school. I know Auburn just brought on this amazing 5-star guy. Cal brought on an amazing 5-star guy this year that was a freshman, but those guys weren't expected to come in and be the guy. They just happened to be the guy. I don't think anyone is expecting Rocco to come in and be your QB1 his true freshman year. No one's expecting that. And so you want to go out and get a guy that can play good college football, but he needs to be protected. I would also tend to agree with you for the offensive line. I think you need to go out and get guys that have proven themselves, not just have played in the Power 5, but have proven themselves, because you went out and got Power 5 talent this year and G5 talent in the portal on defense. You went out and you gave Alex Grinch a bunch of ballers. You got him a bunch of guys from Syracuse. You got him some really big playmakers at FAU. And they went and they balled out. You went and got a kid from Colgate, and now he's one of your best linebackers on your team. But you also got proven Power 5 talent with Lewis Carter, who ended up being 90% of your defense some games. He was all over the field all the time, and he was from Oklahoma. So you're allowed to take chances. Sure, Mike, you're allowed to take chances in the offseason and go get a guy from Limestone or go get a guy from Charlotte with Dwayne Thomas. And you're allowed to go get these guys that have balled out on the lower levels or maybe even, haven't had their opportunity to shine. But you have to get guys that are proven, because that is the way that you build a solid foundation. And they did that for the defense. I would like to see them do that for the offense. Guys, I'm not going to throw any, exact numbers out there, but I will say that there was a majority of the budget last year that was spent on your defensive side of the ball.
Clearly.
Yes.
Clearly.
And I do believe that Scott Frost is an active offensive guru. I do believe that. And it has shown this year in times when you had went out and gotten yourself a big P5 quarterback or a really solid offensive line, that this UCF squad can click. There were plays this year where guys were wide open. Look at the first play out of halftime against Oklahoma State. That's play calling. That is play calling against and knowing what defense you're playing. Dylan Wade was wide open for that 82-yard touchdown. It couldn't have been more open. It is about it was stacking guys to attack a zone where one person was. That is how you play against zone coverage.
Yeah.
And Scott knows that, Mike. I think the talent just needs to be there. And you have some guys that if you can retain them this year, you got a good foundation for next year, Mike. And that's why we will be covering all off season.
Yeah, look, you need to be able to develop. You're not going to always be able to out recruit a lack of development. I'll say this again for the people in the back. You cannot always out recruit a lack of development. What you can do, though, is you can go out and get a bunch of dogs who will win their one-on-one matchups most of the time. Yeah. And so the quarterback throws a 50-50 ball. You have a guy that is so good, it's really like 80-20. It's 80% chance my guy's coming down with it as long as I put it in any area that he can catch it. One of my greatest examples of this is, I want to take you back here. You're younger, but Ken Dorsey at Miami, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Ken Dorsey had like Santana Moss and Kelly Winslow Jr. And like these dudes were insane. If you got the ball anywhere near them, they were catching it. I think maybe he lost 2 games as a starter in 2 years and won a national title and went back and came close to winning a second one back to back. That dude was a winner. Barely got drafted and had almost no NFL career because his arm was too weak for the NFL. But they put dogs around him, man, and he broke records at Miami passing the ball because he had dogs around him. But he did still meet that threshold in college. I think Tim Tebow won a Heisman in college, and he was a terrible NFL quarterback. He was awful. He could barely throw.
He switched to tight end towards the end of his career. So
I'm telling, he could barely throw. And I mean, but when you have, who was the guy that they had? He played a little bit of he was like a receiver / running back in college. Oh, his name was, he returned kicks in 2008 for Florida. Come on, James, you know what I'm talking about. His name always flies out of my head whenever we have this conversation. I don't know why. He's one of my favorite players too. But it was, I mean, you had these kind of guys on your team, and they are very, very hard to stop. I don't know where UCF finds a lot of those types of players in today's Percy Harvin.
Wow, what a fast dude.
What? You got dudes like Percy Harvin around you.
He was a track guy though, wasn't he?
This dude was insane.
Yeah.
He was insane. And you give me Percy Harvin, and that dude could just caught everything, and everything was a threat to go to the house.
Yeah.
He was so good. So where I'm at is, you're not going to go out and find a bunch of just Percy Harvins everywhere, but you can, again, you stack the deck around your quarterback. Give him good line play. Give him good receivers. Give him good tight ends, and then give him good development. Because finding your next Tim Tebow or Cam Newton or Joe Burrow or Lamar Jackson is, you almost got to be lucky, man.
Yeah.
But with hard work and proof of concept, you can stack those other positions. Yeah. Really hard to find a dynamic QB. A lot easier, I think, to put together a team of guys that are dogs around that guy and then have a system that elevates his play. Hopefully they can do that this offseason. We're going to elevate your play here at Locked On UCF. Guys, you know the drill. Hit the video hit the comments after the video, and let us know what you think about O-line play, and where they go from here. And we want to know. We want to know what you think about this offseason. There's going to be a lot to cover. Also, YouTube has a new feature that I want to tell you all about, and it's the hype button. Smash that hype button. You have hype points. Hype this video. Let YouTube know that we are delivering more of the content that you like. That way we can grow our community and continue to bring you even more coverage this season. We brought you live reports on the field from every home game. It was so much fun having Andrew there, credentialed by Locked On UCF and UCF Night Zone, which is also owned by me. And we're trying to give you guys more. We just need your help to continue to do that. James is going to continue to be here with me for this ride. Andrew will as well. We're going to bring on recruits this offseason. We're going to bring on players. We'll hopefully get some coaches. It's going to be a fun offseason of content for you guys. So smash that hype button, hit like and subscribe on the channel. We're going to go on and get out of here. Thank you so much for making Locked On UCF your first listen of every day.